2 days ago, I met one of the most legendary musicians on the planet, one of the most legendary pop stars, but also a personal hero of mine, one of the musicians that's been with me since day one in my journey into music. I met Sting, and on this video, he's going to deal with that. Now, I could have gone there like a YouTuber to try and interview him and get him on my channel. But the trouble is that I'm too close to the guy in my heart, because in 1980, right, I went from buying singles to buying albums, and I bought 2 albums. My first 2 albums I actually got them for Christmas. Was Regatta de Blanc and Motorhead Ace of Spades. Before that, I'd bought a couple of albums, Axe Attack. Those are the albums I bought. Axe Attack 1, which is a compilation album. I was obsessed with the Police. I still think they're perhaps the greatest band, one of the few bands that is greater than the Beatles. I think that they seem to have every aspect of making pop music nailed. So it was an incredible thing. Now, I have to thank Mr. Dominic Miller, who is a fan of the channel, for inviting me backstage and treating me like a king. It was wonderful. It wasn't just like ligging. We were there and we were guests and we were looked after so lovely by everybody there. And I also want to just mention the drummer that is just doing the most incredible job, Chris Mass. Yes, he's called Chris Mass. Yeah, I'm not going to make any jokes about that because this is a serious video and I need to show the guy some respect. He was able to sublimate all those incredible drummers that have gone before and bring them down to what is a very difficult thing to achieve, which is Sting going back to the power trio structure that the Police was, that made him famous in the first place. Now, that's a lot of, shoes to fill, and the guy did it masterfully. Dominic Miller has been a cohort of Sting for about 28 years now, nearly 30 years. So we had Dominic Miller, which was basically the bedrock on which this power trio was based, with this massively long relationships with Sting. And then this guy that's basically brand new. Sting had put together an incredible band, and you wouldn't think that a power trio would be able to do things like Englishmen in New York, but they did, and it was wonderful. Right now, what you're about to see is some footage. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something artsy fartsy to prove to you that I went, right, and I met the guys, but you're not going to get an interview with any of them, and it's not right. Okay, you have to understand that is the nature of this. I went there with my YouTube head on, and I went there to go, what, as a YouTuber, can I glean from this experience? And I did glean something. So once you've seen this little sort of artsy fartsy thing that will give you a flavour of what the day was like, and I was with my friend Rob Grocott. He has been on the channel a few times, so he was my friend I could hold hands with. It's a bit intimidating, going to hang out with Sting. And so he accompanied me on the adventure, and so you might see him. So this is basically what it was like. Hello and welcome to this video. You might wonder why I'm in a toilet with Sting singing in the background, and the reason is because I'm actually backstage at a Sting concert, and I've got a chair on stage with Sting, all courtesy of incredible guitarist Dominic Miller and of course friend of the channel. So we're going to do that work. I've just had a wee. I've had to come off stage for a wee. Let's get back on stage, shall we?
Position nil, repeat nil, age 27, 27, get that, that's very important. Education interrupted, violently interrupted. Religion, Church of England. Politics, conservative by nature, Labour by experience. What's your name?
I cannot read you, cannot read you. Request your position. Can you see our signals?
Oh, give me my scallop shell of quiet, my staff of faith to walk upon, my scrip of joy, immortal diet, my bottle of salvation. My gown of glory, hope's true gauge, and thus I'll take my pilgrimage. Sir Walter Raleigh wrote that. I'd rather have written that than flown through Hitler's leg.
So what did I get from this? I had quite a profound realization, and I want to try and explain that now. But let's first talk about arriving. You arrive in Cannock Chase, which is a beautiful forest, and just north of Birmingham by Cannock. We parked up in lovely surroundings. We're walking in with a generation of people who are of a certain age. They're all very middle class types. You know, they've got their little deck chairs and their little pocket champagnes ready to go and sit and have a wonderful afternoon in the sun, watching Sting, and Sting's in his 70s. This is the end of this era of rock and pop music that we've all lived through. This is the end of it. This is like the after party, and everyone's very civilized. You know, it's no one's off their heads. There's no violence. You know, we walk in, we got in. I bought myself a Magnum ice cream, which was £5. You know, so you're in a certain place. You know, Dominic calls up. He can't get out, so he has to come out to the front, meet us. And of course, he's a superstar, so people are going, oh, is that Dominic? Oh, like this. So we get in, we take him backstage, sit down. And of course, Dominic is a musician. He loves the jazz rock, he loves all the prog, he loves all the weird stuff, he loves music. So we sit down, and I feel like I'm with musicians, and I've been with musicians all my life. So we sit down, and we're talking, and we're talking, and we're talking. And then his drummer comes out, Chris, and Chris sits down, and we're talking about Vinnie Colaiuta, we're talking about Tony Williams, we're talking about jazz. It's like it was just brilliant, you know, just chatting with musicians. I then find out, I say to Chris, this drummer, I say, what was your gig before this? And he goes, oh, I was drumming for Mumford and Sons. And I turned around and went, I hate Mumford and Sons. I said, I did a video where I did a song about a swan, and they're musicians, they're all laughing their heads off. They know the joke. They know that I really don't hate Mumford and Sons. They know really that it's just a silly opinion. They know no one's offended. We all have a laugh about it. And he's going, well, I've got to be honest, Andy, it was the easiest gig I had to do. And you know, because it would have been an easy gig, because the Mumford and Sons stuff is not particularly challenging for a drummer in terms of technically, but in terms of control and dynamics, it would be a very, very difficult gig to do. I could have come on here and do very serious videos and explain all this to you, but you wouldn't watch, would you? If I was to be like that, I have to put a bit of the silliness in, and I have to get angry, and I also have to tell you what I hate, right? I have to tell you what I hate, and I'm not a fan of the Mumford and Sons at all. But it was funny, right? And Chris is just a ridiculous drummer, so that will give you an idea of the quality of musicians that get hired in to play with all the bands that you know. They're all incredible. So having this musical conversation, and in this they're also talking about this gig, and we come up with this idea that this is a strange gig because Sting's gone back to the power trio structure, and to do that means that they have to be quite faithful to the old Police songs. But Sting's not been 100% faithful. We'll get onto that in a minute. But when it comes to Sting's own songs, they're like completely reinvented. Now, as we're talking, Sting walks in, and you get the feeling that this huge charisma has emerged in the space, because he was behind me, and I thought suddenly, oh my God, what's going on? I look around, and Sting walks over, and you're a bit like, oh my God. He jumps in next to me. He sort of goes, I've scratched my eye. I think I've scratched my eye. He's telling that, and I say, what have you scratched the corner? And he said, yeah, he does. And he turns around to me, and he literally comes up and says, can you see this? And have a look. And I'm looking into Sting's, in his face. It's like that. He puts his hand on me. Sting is funny, laid back, open. I have met a few superstars in my life. I have never met a guy like this, to the point where I know that when he goes on and he's a little bit more reserved in interviews, it's because he's playing an act. This guy is Gordon Sumner, but he plays the act Sting to the letter. I mean, this guy's in his 70s. He looked magnificent. When my photograph's taken next to him, I felt bad because I'm like 57. He's like nearly 20 years older than me. And I look terrible next to him. This is a superstar. And we start talking about music, and we're chatting away, and Sting kept coming back, and he'd come and sit down and chat about all sorts of things. And I just think, oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I just been loving it. I loved it. I thought, I don't want to then say, you know, Sting, any chance I could just do a 10-minute interview to get you on my channel so I can get some views? I didn't want to do it. I asked for a cheeky photograph, and they all obliged, you know. You can see Sting's got his arms around me in the photographs. That's because I told him to put his arm around me. I thought I wanted to look like he's my mate, and he obliged, because he's a decent bloke. Incredible. But what was interesting was they are about to play to like 20,000 people, right? Sting comes over and he goes, when we go to that song, he says, do it like this. Or what do you think about that last night? Shall we do that again? Make that a bit faster. Do this, do that. He's giving them instructions before they go on stage. And then they go on stage. As you saw, we're put on the side of the stage so I can see what's going on between the band and what's happening. And what you had was one of the great inventions of rock music, which is the power trio. And the power trio is a big sound, and it's a full sound, but you have loads of latitude and leeway. They were jamming, they were taking things at the tempo that they felt like at the time. They used a few clicks here and there, because I think there was one track when they did Desert Rose that had a backing on it, but the rest of it was completely free. And Chris told me afterwards that even on a couple of the others which have got clicks in, which is because they have to be introduced by another member, like Dominic's bringing it. He said a lot of time once they're in, he just leaves the click because Sting will pull it in another direction. Right? I became very aware watching this. I thought, what we are seeing here at the moment is a way of transmitting music to people which is unbelievably rare. Dominic Miller and Chris must have a gig which is incredibly rare. It's a gig where you play to lots and lots of people. It's a gig where there's enough finance to have a proper show with a full crew, obviously, because it's Sting, you know, and it's on stage and it's beautiful and you get to see the music how it should be presented. But they are making it up. They're partly making it up as they go along. Park that idea. That doesn't exist anymore. If you go and see anyone else now, the guy that's on the drums in the back may not be in the PA. They are just there to look like there's a drummer on stage. But what they will be doing is queuing up the lighting and the video. I've spoke to session drummers now. You don't hear their drum kits. They're triggered. There's triggered drums in the background. They're basically playing something that is scripted note for note. I was once told that the whole show's often clicked. It runs the lights and the video, and the interjections that the singer says, the front person says, is scripted because the thing was stopped and then you got a certain amount of minutes while they say they're scripted and then they're back in. That's how most modern gigs are, right? The old people that are still out there playing it properly are not particularly great musicians. You know, we've had Neil Young over at headlining Glastonbury. I'm sure none of his stuff was on a click. It would have just been old school. But they're not in the same bracket as Sting musically. There was moments in this where it was like Jimi Hendrix. There's moments in this when it was like dark jazz chords. It was incredible that they were able to present music at such a high level to such a big audience. But also Sting has got a raft of songs which are not just great songs, but have had a cultural impact on society, whether it's walking on the moon or messaging a bottle or don't stand so close to me or every breath you take or fragile or fields of goals or shape of my heart, you know, all these songs are songs that we're going to hear for the rest of time, and they transcend. And I became aware chatting to these two musos that their job here was to do something very, very complex. And what it was to serve the song. Now, I've done a video on serving the song, right? Because I think serving the song does not mean not playing much and having an excuse for why you can't play fast, which is usually how that term is used by most musicians. I think I sussed what serving the song is. And the reason is because I was exposed to such an incredibly intense experience of meeting Sting, who wrote the songs, getting a feel for who he is, chatting to Dominic, chatting to Chris, being taken out onto the stage, sitting in the stage, looking at the massive thing that was around me, the lights, the video sting, the crew, all the people, the ice cream vans with their £5 magnums, the whole thing is there. The whole thing is serving the song. At the centre of this is the songs. Even Sting basks in the reflective glory of his songs. Without those songs, none of it would be there. None of it. Sting would go out and attempt to do a Brian Wilson set in tribute to him, but what would be holding the audience there would not be Sting, it would be Brian Wilson's songs. The songs are fundamental in this. But what's interesting is that Sting is changing everything about them. He's faithful to the Police songs more, but the tempos are different, the arrangements were different, they were jamming inside them, they were segueing one with another. When they did Driven to Tears and just hit that sort of, you know, almost like the Jimi Hendrix Experience, you know, that middle section where someone just flies and you feel it open up into areas of Coltrane and all that type of thing. My hair was standing on end. I'm a jazz guy, but my hair was standing on end. I'm back there now. And when I was actually sat on stage, I wasn't going to do a video about it. I thought, I'm not even going to mention it. I'm going to do the honourable thing and just go there, hang out with people who've been very kind to me and not try and get anything out of it. But when I was sat on stage, I started to film the experience aesthetically. I started to film the lights and what was going on around me, and I started to think, oh, this is the experience I want to capture. All that experience is coming from the songs. It's all coming from the songs. So what is it? What is a song? What's the core of the song? We watch the gig. In the end, it finishes. We watch all the encores. It's like when they finish their main set and then they walk off stage, you know, Dominic and Chris come to me and we're hugging each other. The reason we're hugging each other is because we've all experienced the same thing together. We've all experienced this, not an ego thing at all. I just wanted to put my arms around Dominic because he'd given me such an amazing experience, and I wanted to get across to Chris, being a drummer, albeit not working at that level or not had that experience, but at least maybe I can give him something to tell him how incredible this was, because I see in their eyes that tiny bit of post-gig. Was that any good? We had a few mistakes. Oh, you know, they're doing it, and I'm going there. Don't go fall into that. I've been there a million times myself. I couldn't see one mistake, but they would say, "Oh, this happened, that happened." You know, like musicians are. That's why they're great, because they will never stop pushing. This is why Sting's still doing it at 70 years old. They will never stop pushing. They will never stop it. It's such a shame that the industry is collapsing, and this stage, literal stage that was once there to present this incredible thing to people, is slowly dying away and turning into total shite. And that's the bottom line. And it's depressing for musicians. Of course, Dominic Miller is very good friends with Vinnie Colaiuta, who is one of my idols as a drummer. And I feel that the Vinnie's sort of disappearance, and even perhaps his he's been having a bit of problems with his hands. I've had similar problems with my hands as a drummer. But your hands, if you're a drummer, that relationship is really close. And I just wonder whether Vinny is just railing against the situation that he aesthetically finds himself in. Because I think I've been able to bypass that as a musician because I've got this channel and I can revel in what I love. And the more I revel in it, and the more I get a little bit of anger and aggression against those things that I think challenge it, the more people seem to stand up, you know. And they may be a whole bunch of old people, and maybe in 20 years' time when we're all dead and gone, maybe that will be gone and it will be lost to the world. That all this was the massive thing I felt watching this gig and being backstage. I've been backstage at big gigs before, going back 20, 30 years. I was backstage on Black Sabbath's supposed last gig in 2000 up in Birmingham at the NEC. But then that you felt that you were in this realm. You felt that you'd gone into this wonderful rock and roll realm that was very, very special. Very special place to be. But it feels like that realm's still there, but it's now, the borders have shrunk. There's a few pockets, and when you get in there, they haven't quite got the armies. They haven't got, you know, the king's still there, but it's all a bit like Rohan, you know, when Gandalf first goes to see the king, Theodrin, is that him? And they got that worm tail. That's the Spotify in it, that worm tail. And I arrived like the YouTube Gandalf. I can save the day with my YouTube channel, Sting. I got 55,000 subscribers. And I didn't want to do that, you see. Because I'm a nobody. It's all piddly. Right? So they come off stage, then they go back on, they do the encores, it's all wonderful. And then they all walk off. Sting looks magnificent. He's all energised from doing the gig. And of course, when you're a superstar, once you finish the gig, you go, because obviously people are now going to try and run around the back and try and get, so you have to get out as fast as you possibly can. So he jumps in his chauffeur-driven car, he's gone, and then the place empties out. But I'm chatting into Dominic and Chris. We chat for another hour and a half, me and Rob, and then we finish. The only way to get back to our car is to go from the backstage back into this big auditorium, this natural auditorium in the forest, walk through and go back to our cars, but it's completely empty now. And that was a very strange feeling, to be in this place, like this massive gig, when it's finished and you're just in the forest in the middle of the night. Very, very, very meaningful. Very meaningful. But you want to know what I learned from it, don't you? Well, when we come off stage, we start chatting about it, and they're talking about all the things that Sting has done in terms of these songs. He's a guy who's in his early 70s. He's written some of these songs nearly 50 years ago. Well, 50 years ago. These songs have been with him, but the only way he can sing those songs is to find new aspects inside the song. And so he's looking for something else. Now, I have to be honest, and I said this to Dominic, I said, when I looked at the set list and I saw that their last song was going to be, before the encore, would be Every Breath You Take. Well, of course it is. And the thing is, it's such a great song, and Sting has to play it in the set. But I don't want to hear Every Breath It Takes again. I've heard it a million times. It's one of the greatest songs ever written, but I don't want to hear it again. But when they got there, all those little things that Sting had said to do re-energize the song. And I realised this, once it's re-energized like that, Sting is able to sing it and mean it again. So the song has to live. The song has to change to live. So if the song is changing, what is the song? Right? Is it the lyrics? Is it the chords? Is it the riffs? What is it? Because all of that is changing. All right? And what I realised is that all of those things can change, because the song is not that. Right? The closest thing to describing what a song is like trying to describe what a person is. Sting creates these songs. Some of the songs he's written, he probably can't remember, right? They've gone into the ether. But some of the songs he's given out, and they're our songs. And we kind of own them, right? But that doesn't mean he can't change them. He can change them, but he has to be true to something in the song. But that's ephemeral. It is not the makings of the song, which is the song. If that resides anywhere, it will be in the lyrics. But obviously, even in that regard, if you think of Elton John singing at Princess Diana's funeral, he changed the lyrics completely to Candle in the Wind. But it was still Candle in the Wind. You see? The song is not those things. The song is something that the artist makes and they give it to the audience, and then there is a life between the audience. It is a pocket. It's a pocket relationship of a certain aesthetic idea between the individual and society. And there's a dialogue going on between the two. And when Sting gets up to sing it, that dialogue needs to start again. It has to start, and it's based upon that pocket of aesthetic stuff. And the reason why the song has to exist is because I cannot tell you what that is. It's not the chords, it's not the lyrics, it's not anything. But the way to describe it would be, it's like a personality. And that song can be some things and not other things. And the great arbiter of what that is Sting. And Sting will then think, I think that my song could do with a little bit of this. A little bit like he's tending to, I don't know, like a horse that was once a championship, horse racing horse, and then now he's in a pasture, and sometimes it comes out and it races, but what it does now is different from what it did 20 years ago. It came out and nobody knew this horse. He ran in the races, it became massively famous, it became celebrated, and now you're looking after this horse and people will come and still brush it, and they'll brush the horse down and they'll do it, and the horse will even ride around, and you'll see the magnificence of it, but everything changes. None of these songs will last forever. Nothing does last forever, but they will last for a certain time. And whilst they exist, Sting's job is to look after them and go out and sing them, and that's why he's Sting, and that's what he does. And us as an audience will be there to watch them. The overwhelming thing I came across, and this video is a companion piece to a video I've done about Glastonbury, where I've really slated Glastonbury to becoming too political, too virtue signaling, too representative of a sort of middle class elite, which I saw at the Sting gig. Let's just be honest. You know, the tickets were 100 quid and 150 quid. If you're poor, you're not going to be there, you know. And I could feel that I was in that realm, without a doubt. But Sting, there was no politics there. There was no virtue signaling. Sting's songs still pack a punch. Every Breath You Take, which on the surface seems like a sort of love song, which is that, but it's actually about obsessive infatuation and not being able to leave someone because you're obsessed with them and you're going to sort of almost like stalk them. And those two things that exist together, the idea of sort of platonic love in its beautiful form, and then this sort of much more poisonous love, and being married together in what seems like just the classic love song, that dichotomy of what love is applies to us all. And so when I saw him 2 nights ago, he gave it a much more aggressive take. It was faster, you know. So can't you see you belong to, and I'd heard him say, can you chop that guitar part? And then Dominic was telling me in great detail how he was trying to play that riff to take out the emotion, so it almost sounded like a robotic, so it's like hypnotic, which suddenly brings back this idea that someone's driven and they're not going to stop at anything. And Dominic said to me, he said, you have a tendency to want to go dum 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 dum, and accent that, but he said it needs to be dun 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 dun. And as you play that, it's almost like a Henry Mancini riff now, isn't it? And it's tense. It's like it's got an aspect of the private detective. It's got an aspect, of someone spying on someone. You start to realise that that's in the riff that makes the song, but that riff becomes such a sort of cliche, because of old P. Diddy, who's now in court about to go down as part of this establishment that is just really rotten to the core, that he used it to express his love for some other bloke that he probably had assassinated. I don't know, the whole thing is, this is the thing. This is Sting's journey. My two favourite bands, I've just realised this, my two favourite bands, the ones that mean the most to me, is Led Zeppelin and The Police and Sting. When Sting left The Police and he did Dream of the Blue Turtles, and Nothing Like the Sun, running up to 10 Summoner songs, that's when I was obsessed with Sting. I was just absolutely in love with what he was doing musically. I have now made contact with Rock Planet in my life. I've made contact with Sting. Those two bands are really important with me. But the other thing is, Jimmy Page and Sting have both collaborated with P. Diddy. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird what this rock and roll journey has been. But what I'm trying to get across to you is the song has a great song speaks to everybody. It's not political. You could write a political song, but when Dylan does, The Answer My Friend Is Blowing in the Wind, which is a political song, he is able to do that in a way which transcends politics and talks to everybody. Unlike the parody that appeared at Glastonbury, Bob Vylan, who decided to take Rage Against the Machine and take their polemic, non-political statement, which is, F you, I won't do what you tell me. Everybody feels like that at some point in their life. And replace it with F you. What did he say? F you, you're not having your country back. Which I thought was quite ironic, because he was stood in front of a Palestinian flag. I thought, I hope the Palestinians aren't listening to this sentiment, because they might be going, what's he saying? Well, we're not allowed to have our country back. Of course, that was lost on him, wasn't it? Because he's a pile of shite. But Sting's not. Sting is... What I experienced was the dying art of the rock musician and their ability to make pop music that is transcendent. And to do that, it is because the artists that are making it keep the music alive. And the way they keep their music alive is by being adherent to the song, which is set in stone. But the song is not the chords or the lyrics or anything. The song represents something that can't be said, but it's set in stone. It can't be changed. As soon as you change that, you go, well, we're not doing the song anymore. But nobody quite knows what that is. And that is combined with an incredible improvisatory element, which this band has, which modern bands don't have. Right, that comes from jazz, and that enables you to keep the music alive. Right, now, why are we all here? Why is Sting here? The reason is because in the 1920s, the music industry was invented. It was a recording industry. And in that recording industry, the companies started to realise they could sell records. But they couldn't sell like opera. They couldn't sell like classical. They could sell, but that wasn't what was going to turn the world on its head. What was going to turn the world on its head was jazz and blues, because it was an improvisatory form. The blues was this set of songs that went right back to all sorts of different folk music, Scottish music, Irish folk music, Nego spirituals, the slave experience. Those songs have a spirit. So when Robert Johnson does Crossroads and then Cream do Crossroads, Cream are pulling in. Rock music's created out the very thing I just explained. Right? Those musicians were able to go into the recording studio and take the new technology and go, well, let's build a song that works the best in this scenario. Not just photograph some light classical opera or this or some old folk song. We're going to change what we do to accommodate this new technology. Louis Armstrong was able to take a song by Hoagy Carmichael, like Stardust, and he could sing it, and he could not have the chords, he could change the melody, he could change the lyrics, or even get rid of it. But he famously, when he sings Stardust, which is a very involved melody, which is actually based upon a solo that Hoagy Carmichael heard Bix Beiderbecke played, who Louis was, he loved Bix Beiderbecke. This is what all popular music is based upon, is this stuff I'm telling you now. This is why it's so important. And when Louis Armstrong sings Stardust, he sings all that complexity with one note, thus changes songwriting forever and allowing at that point the feelings and thoughts of the singer to have a much greater part within the song and have a relationship to the song. That eventually ends up with the singer-songwriter and eventually ends up with a musician like Sting, who is all things. He is a jazz musician, he's a rock musician, he's pulled in elements of reggae, of electronica, of dance music. He represents all that. That is about to die. And we will be back to what existed before Louis Armstrong. People get up and play songs that someone else has written. The songs won't mean anything, and the song will just be a way of getting copyright and making money. And that will be lost. That will be lost. Because it didn't exist before. Didn't exist before. So that was my stick. That was pretty profound, wasn't it? I thought it was. Thank you, Mr. Sting, for being so gracious. Thank you to Dominic and Chris and all the crew guys, especially, and I can't remember his name, but he was a wonderful man. Dominic Miller's guitar tech, who really looked after us. Got us 2 little seats right on the side of the stage. Really blew our minds. So thanks to them. You didn't get a Sting interview, and that's the right thing. What you got is me, who you follow, going there, representing all you lot, and being able to come back and tell a story about what I experienced there. I think that is far more important, don't you? Far more important. So if you enjoyed that, please put a like on it. You can stick a subscribe on it. You can do all the things. I got Patreon down below. You can follow me. You can do all that type of stuff. And I think I just want to thank Dominic and Chris and Sting and all those guys again. I can't tell you what an amazing night it was. And it did me a lot of good. When we walked in and we were walking backstage, Rob turned around to me and he goes, "It's your YouTube that's got you here." And I went, "I know. It's amazing, isn't it?" And he went, "Yeah, it's incredible." And that's not me. That's you lot.